From Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. Now, to serious things, because as I was leaving yesterday, the Chief of Staff, Declan, buttonholed me and said, "Look here, Keith," he said, "we've got a new piece of food on lunch. And would you please mention it?" Would I mention it? Wowee! It's called the Longhorn Lunch here at the Black Horse. And it's on from 12 until 5. Have you tasted it, Ada?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Beautiful.
There you go. We've got an independent witness. Another member of the staff is Ada. She's had it. It's the steak sandwich. It's a sirloin steak with Monterey Jack, caramelized onion, red onion chutney, rocket, and sriracha aioli. Now, those, you see, I'm out of touch with what is modern words for food. Sriracha aioli in a ciabatta roll. I can get that one right. Ciabatta roll. And it's all for £7.95. Pretty damn good price, I would say. Now, on top of that, in case you're not a steak person, the katsu chicken sandwich, panko chicken, Asian-style slaw, katsu sauce, and alioli in a ciabatta roll, also at $7.95. Now, if you're very, very hungry, apart from the regular memory releases, by the way, there's this homemade nachos, homemade Cajun tortilla, topped with red cheddar, sour cream, guacamole, and salsa, all for £10.95. And you can have with it and you can slow-cooked short rib for the mere amount of £3. There you are. That is lunch, the Longhorn Lunch at the Black Horse. When you come in, ask for Declan. And you say, "Declan, Keith sent me to try your Longhorn Lunch." And you can get it from 12 until 5. The steak sandwich, the katsu chicken sandwich, or homemade nachos. Ooh, goodness gracious me. That's very good. Very good stuff. Right you are. And Ada has tried it, and she says it's pretty good. All right, now we better turn to serious things, I suppose, because we need to look at what's going on in the news right now. The front pages of the newspaper. So let's do that because the fallout from Harry's book. Well, it's not Harry's book. It was written by as somebody else who is so famous that I've forgotten his name. Omid Scobie, who has written this book. And what is it called again? Let's have a look if the front page of the Daily Mail is critical of Scobie. It says his insistence he did not include the names in a draft of the book has unraveled after the Mail spoke to the Dutch publisher, which reportedly told the paper they appeared in the text. Scobie has told the BBC he does not know how the names ended up appearing in the Dutch version. Now, I still haven't got the name of the book, but undoubtedly it'll come to light, and is because the Express, which tends to fall down on the side of the establishment, says the aftermath of the publication of the new book on the royal family continues to appear on the front page of some Friday's papers. The Daily Express says it will be an injustice to reprint the names of two senior royals linked to a racism controversy that appeared in the Dutch language version of Omid Scobie's Endgame. That's the name of the book, Endgame. Oh, ho, ho. This one's going to roll on. And, on the one hand, it said that Harry is trying to make up to his father and possibly even his brother. And then this comes out, ho, ho, ho. Wow. Talk about a pot boiler. The Metro says the royal race crisis. What royal race crisis? Keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on is the royal family's response to the release. According to the Metro, senior royals have continued with their public engagements despite scrutiny created by the book. Let's face it. Is anything to do with the royals gets people wound up. But there's His Majesty, only a year into his reign and embroiled in just the most awful things. I wouldn't like to be embroiled with them, I have to say. Now, the Daily Star moves away from the royals, and however, it uses the word king. The king of the Hellraisers, it says. The Star's front page is dedicated to Shane McGowan, who has died aged 65. The Pogues frontman was a gifted songwriter who was well known to many for his wit and hard living as his music. The Star hails him as the king of the Hellraisers. Oh, the Sun, it goes the same way. Wildman dies at 65. His Christmas classic fairy tale of New York set for #1. Oh, right. It looks as if posthumously he's going to be #1 in the charts. Whoopee. I must say that I personally don't get excited about these things, but there we go. A lot of you do, and so you would. And this is what the Sun says. And the bells are ringing out for Shane. The bells are ringing out for Shane, says the front of the Sun, a reference to the lyrics of Christmas song Fairy Tale of New York, which he sang alongside Kirsty MacColl. He died following a recent hospital stay after being diagnosed with encephalitis. McGowan had well-documented problems with drugs and alcohol. The Guardian, it goes on to let's not tar the king with brushes that he shouldn't be tarred with. The Guardian, a deal agreed at COP28 to help poor countries cope with climate crisis. Although they've got Shane McGowan smack bang in terms of a photograph in the middle of the front page. Here we are. The Guardian also features a photo of Shane McGowan on its front page, but the paper leads with news from the COP28, which is the environmental international conference in Dubai, where a deal has been agreed to help the world's poorest and most vulnerable countries deal with the impacts of climate change. Well, now, I think I'd better say there, I've had a lot to do with international development one way or another. I've traveled the world putting together television stations and radio stations and trying to train journalists in the way of independent thinking. The big problem with all these things is where they assign money is corruption. I was actually in Romania in the year, I think it was 2006, when they entered the European Union. And two things happened in that country. First of all, the president and the prime minister fell out, and so they went to a referendum to remove the president. And it was obvious that the president was going to win, hands down. So the prime minister called a cabinet meeting and they changed the constitution so that they would win. And they went back onto the hustings, and it became obvious that they were still going to lose. And they changed the constitution yet again in their favor and ended up losing. That was one. But secondly, I was asked to chair a meeting of our ambassador and 6 other Western ambassadors, and we had their foreign minister in behind closed doors and lectured him about contracts being awarded to Romanian companies, EU contracts, which should have been going to open tender. And our ambassadors warned them that they would ask our governments to stop all EU funds to Romania if this practice continued. Now, that's the sort of thing that happens when people first come into a new union, if you like. They can't resist seeing it as a gold bowl. And that's why it worries me about funds being passed on like this and agreed that it will be used for what it's meant to be used for. So there you are. That's warnings from Uncle Keith. The Times. Sunak calls on China to do more as climate talks begin. So the COP meeting, COP 28, is proceeding with already Sunak and what leaders warning one another about what they should do with the results of these talks. They can all agree on it, but how they'll actually administer it, implement it, is another question. Now, strangely enough, the day before yesterday, I was talking to somebody about Henry Kissinger, who was always considered to be the evil genius of the United States. And his picture is smack dab bang in the middle of the Times because he died at 100. But he was a very, very influential world figure, and for many years was venerated for his wisdom and his ability to apparently carry out diplomacy. And in fact, he was really working for his own ends. But the main story is lockdown delay was fatal mistake, Hancock admits. On the first day of an inquiry, he said that Britain should have locked down 3 weeks earlier at the start of the pandemic to save tens of thousands of lives. That's what the COVID inquiry was told by Hancock yesterday. The Times leads on the latest from the COVID-19 public inquiry, where former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said the decision to delay imposing a national lockdown was a mistake. The main image on the front page is of Henry Kissinger, the former US Secretary of State, who played a pivotal role in the shaping of American foreign policy during the Cold War. And this is a picture of his death at 100. The Financial Times. Investors rush for risky assets in the belief that the rate rises are over. No more interest rate rises for a while. And so everybody's piling into the market in the belief that it will get healthier, it will grow, and there will be money to be made. The global stock market is experiencing its biggest rally since before the COVID-19 pandemic. Optimism is spreading amongst investors, the Financial Times says. They're gambling on the end of global interest rate rises, and its main image in the paper is of Alistair Darling, who has died aged 70. It described the former Labour Chancellor as the man who helped steer Britain through financial crisis. The Eye. Labour. EU will be our number one priority for UK foreign policy. Aha. What that means is we will do our damnedest to try and get back into the European Union. It isn't going to be that easy, even if they have a clear run as government. A number of papers have named two senior royals who are alleged by a book to have speculated about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's unborn child's skin colour. But the lead in the Eye is an interview with the Shadow Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who says a future Labour government would prioritise improving relations with the European Union. He says he would seek a shift in London-Brussels ties and work towards more collaboration on defence and security. Yes. Those are basically the newspapers. Now, what about the weather? What about the weather as long as we're together? Well, let's take a look at it, because this morning it was bloody cold, and it is bloody cold now. It is only 0. It's freezing at the moment. It started off at -3, and it's only going to rise to 5 degrees. It's long sunny intervals and a gentle breeze, no rain. That's one blessing, but nonetheless, it is not going to be warm out there. So be careful. And Saturday, the 2nd, is going to be a day of sunshine, but even colder. It's going to be no more than 3 degrees all day. Sunday, it's going to leap to 8. It's going to rain. And then Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday is going to see a steady rise. Sunday 8, Monday 8, Tuesday 8, Wednesday 8, Thursday 10. And some sunshine through the cloud. Friday 11, and some sunshine through the cloud. So there you are. That's what the sun is going to be. What is the time now? The time is 28 minutes past 9 o'clock. I think it's time for us to get into the Christmas spirit, if we can. And let's just have a little look, shall we? If we can find it. I have great problems finding stuff. I really do. I have no idea why. It all seems to be perfectly okay when I'm off air, when I'm preparing this stuff. And then it all disappears. And I have no idea where it disappears to. Oh dear. I'm really going to have to get this system sorted out. I really are. I really am. Not really are. Tut. Fancy me. Oh, here we go. Right. Let us take a look at what Mirador is what we see as Christmas Day. You ready? Whoosh, woo.
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ the Savior was born on Christmas Day to save us all from Satan's power when we had gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. From God our Heavenly Father, a blessed angel came, and unto certain shepherds brought tidings of the same, how that in Bethlehem was born the Son of God by name. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Comfort and joy. Tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Well, there you are. That is the first smattering of Christmas Eve. And next week we'll show you part of the Mirador trilogy, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, just to tempt you to what's coming up. Wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes, a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Okay, now what we're going to do is continue with the bloody past of a tiny town, and we're going to show you the first part of, at least I hope we are, the bloody past of a tiny town, and it, if I can find it, and we'll. Yes, if we can find it. Is the I actually have no idea. I've got a feeling that it may well be my Parkinson's that causes me to see things one way, one day, and another the next. But no, here we are. I think that we've got it. It's episode 2 of a Tiny Town? No, we didn't put it with episode 1. Let's see. The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, episode 3. Here is the first half of episode 3, coming right up.
He sat on the bank while the river still chattered onto him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world. That was the excitement that Mole experienced in the story Wind in the Willows. And indeed, rivers large and small everywhere all have many stories to tell. The River Ouse that flows through Lewes is no different. In fact, for much of the town's history, it has played an important part. Today, the river carries nothing but pleasure craft. But for a long time, it was a busy, bustling port. About a mile upstream from here is the village of Hamsey. It sits on a triangle of land which splits the river as it curves down towards the town. Hamsey is barely a village today. A few houses with the 13th century church standing in splendid isolation. But Hamsey was Normans had a bit to do with its demise. The area was handed over to a Norman lord. But the community was attacked by an enemy it couldn't stop. An army of rats, which disembarked from one of the visiting ships, went ashore and infected the village with bubonic plague, the Black Death. The disease devastated Hamsey. And while there is no historic evidence, legend has it that the residents barricaded themselves in to prevent unaffected people coming in and diseased people getting out. Eventually, they starved to death. Named after the black rats which carried the plague, the Black Death killed over half the population in Britain between 1348 and 1349. The survivors founded another village off Ham, the modern thriving village of Opham. The plague attacked Lewes several times over the following centuries, each time causing significant loss of life. So death continued to stalk Lewes, bringing tragedy to the high street in rather greater measure than other UK high streets. Hamsey gone, but Lewes as a port flourished. Ships and barges plied their trade up and down the Ouse, creating an exciting and bustling waterway. Many of these buildings, which stand on an extension of the high street in an area called Cliff, are built with old ship's timbers. Where Argos now stands was a sailor's pub called the Bear, built as a brewery in 1787, and it succumbed to the carelessness of revelry and burned down in 1918. This quiet domestic street, which runs for a short distance parallel to the Ouse, was the sailors' playground, and history relates that there were more than a dozen brothels successfully operating. Today, this street is known as Little Chelsea. Even the name makes it seem a nice place to live. The rather small abodes have found favour with many modern Louisians and are now favoured homes. And why not? They look good in a twee kind of way. And if you're not living in a former brothel, there are other historical backgrounds to raise the interest. All this talk of pubs and trading around town, it saps my energy. So I sometimes come to this little oasis. The Notts Garden in Southover Park. A lovely little hideaway. Back to the High Street, or at least its extension into the cliff area of Lewes. So I've been wandering around here because Lewes is full of antique stores and models. As I mentioned, go inside some of these shops and you'll find that they're supported by old ship's timbers. Another reminder of the days when Lewes was a port. All this talk of water has made me thirsty. I made several mentions of the time Lewes had 63 pubs. As you would expect, among the 16 that are left, there are some with strong ties to the community. Over the road from the shops, held up by ship's timbers, is the Gardener's Arms. There seems to be a tradition in Lewes, although no one admits to it, of omitting the epithet pub or tavern. This pub is called by locals simply the Gardener's. And the Gardener's it was. The origins of this pub go back to when it was an ordinary house, owned by a gardener. Often, after work, he would invite other gardeners into his front room for a drink. Eventually, it made sense to formalize the ritual. So it turned into a pub. The Gardener's is a true pub. Unusual now, it only serves pork pies and sausage rolls. Yet each year it's in the top tier of finalists for Pub of the Year. Magnificent. Back to the Street of 1,000 Brothels. Well, perhaps not 1,000, but a few anyway. There's a pub called the Snowdrop. Nice pub, they tell me. Interesting for its name and where it stands. This is the site of England's deadliest avalanche. Just after Christmas in 1836, heavy snow built up on the edge of the downs. There were 7 cottages here where the pub now stands. Despite warnings, the people living there went about their business, totally unconcerned about the snow. Then whoosh, down it came, demolishing 7 cottages and taking the lives of 8 people.
Time, gentlemen, please.
Not heard now, but the admonishment of past landlords that it was time to quit drinking should have been heeded by the cottagers. A disaster both for the country and the town. A brief mention of one last hostelry, the John Harvey Tavern. Named after the founder of a local brewery, the one of 16 to survive to the modern day, Harvey's has been around since at least 1790. And an important inhabitant. Along with Mole and Ratty on the banks of the River Ouse. More on that later. For the moment, back to the bar. How I wish I'd lived in Lewes when it had 63 pubs. Bliss.
Well, there you are. That is the first half of the episode 3 of Tiny Town. Is the bloody past, and bloody it was, believe me. If you've lived here for a long time, you'll be aware of some of the bloody sequences that have taken place. If you're new, believe me, you've got an awakening, because we have been quite bloodthirsty over the years, and a lot of English history is that has gone under the bridge right in this very town where you tread each day on the high street and are going to the shops. Okay, now it's not going to stop. I just got the Sussex Express, the local paper. Nowhere near as influential as it was, unfortunately, but still there, still hanging in there, just the same as us. And with the disappearance and the shrinkage of local media, then it is to be valued that the Sussex Express is still going, that we're still going, that unfortunately Rocket Radio seems to have disappeared, but who knows? We have Rouser Radio sitting in the background, and perhaps we can resurrect that. But certainly something needs to be done to give us all a boost, because otherwise we'll be without any of this this news outlet, and the council will be able to get away with what it wants. And the one thing that it is going to do is it's going to commit suicide. It is in the Sussex Express on the front page. It says, have they been clever? I think that they've been clever and actually signed their own death knell. Is the district council have blocked the application by the Boxing Day hunt to have the road closed so that they can ride through Lewes. Now, whatever you may think of fox hunting, the fact is this is a rural community. Hundreds and hundreds turn out on Boxing Day, traditionally, to see the hunt off. The argument about whether drag hunting has really replaced fox hunting is one that nobody can prove one way or the other. But riding to hounds is a popular sport, and it is in rural communities. And what have the district council done? They've given it a closure to Action Against Fox Hunting having a wheelbarrow race. My God, I'll tell you, anybody who takes part in that will take their life in their hands, because they, as indeed fox hunters have met hostile crowds in the past against fox hunting, I am quite sure that the district council have lifted the lid onto a hostile crowd against wheelbarrow racing. How silly can they be? But you know, I'm sorry, but we've said it, and actually Stuart Downey, Stuart Downey, our energy correspondent and famous foreign correspondent, Stuart, has said many a time that he has no faith in the Greens. And I must say, we knew that they would do something spectacular to show just how silly they are and how one-sided and one-viewed. And not only that, but not willing to reflect the nature of their constituency. That's the important thing. They have a mandate, and they must follow that mandate. And if they don't like the fox hunting, they don't have to grant the road closure. That is their right. Even so, it's still dicey. But to put something in place that is cocking a snoot at 3/4 of the people that they represent, that's downright lunacy. And the fact of the matter is doing something like this does not give me any faith in the other things that they do. And I joined Stuart Dalby in that. How silly can they be? I must say, individually, I know 2 or 3, and only 2 or 3, of either council for whom I have any respect whatsoever. But the thing is that this is the sort of thing that is creating lack of confidence, lack of faith, lack of trust in any politicians whatsoever. It's all crazy. They should get on with administering, which they've failed to do, signally failed to do. The Phoenix Project is just a farce. We keep on having headlines. Hey, we're doing it. You know, it just is scratching the surface. Stuart went and took a look at the latest people to promise to build all sorts of houses on the North Street land. They haven't got any money. That's starting from scratch. One can say, wow, good for them. How brave, how entrepreneurial. But it's tough to raise millions of pounds. You need time to do it. You can't just snap your fingers. And in the meantime, we have the threat of schools like Eton of building new towns on the edge of beautiful, beautiful rural villages. And do we hear green voices in protest? We hear whimpers, we hear whispers. They're also busy gazing at their navels and saying how wonderful they are. English politics, British politics, is in a mess. And it's not just in a mess at Westminster level, where you can point the finger. It's a mess all the way down the line. And you know, the big problem is that when it starts to crumble, that's when the bad guys come in. I don't think for one moment that most of the people on the Lewis District Council or the Town Council, for that matter, are bad guys. I just think they're totally naive and get carried away with just one focused point of view. They don't think in terms of perspective. I mean, you know, in the past, they've done silly things like turning up to the Memorial Day service because they don't believe in war, looking as if they haven't shaved, looking as if their shirt has not been ironed, refusing to wear the cocked hat. Who do they think they're kidding? Only themselves. They may go home and they may sit with the dog at their feet and tell their family how wonderful they are, but that's all. But let's pass on something to them. The dog does not have a vote. And the family's vote isn't going to go very far if they keep this up. This is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I've never come across anything like it in all my life. And my life is considerable, 84 years worth. Just, we get so upset. I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. I spent 15 years in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And who are the people who actually have a go at soldiers who served there? People who never went to Northern Ireland. They never knew what it was like to live under terrorism. They never knew what it was like to wonder whether you were going to be blown to bits every time you stepped out through your front door. They never knew any of these things, but they were the experts. And they decided how people who were there should be treated. Well, I'll tell you something, you're bollocks. That's what you are. All you are is all mouth and no trousers. And the trouble is that on issues like that, you're like on everything else. And let me get down to the nitty-gritty and the dirty fingernails. We are still waiting for some action on Stephen Catlin's secret garden that you're all going to have a go at. Yes, let's do that. What a lovely memorial. Where are you? Nowhere. And we at Mirador Television are left flailing around because we can't even get anybody to grant us permission to go and start to do something for it. To start even collecting some money to see whether we can have a nice memorial for a very fine man who stood out head and shoulders above all of you and who understood what governance was about and what leadership was about. Not this silly nonsense, this silly rubbish that you go through and cause us to have doubts about your ability to govern. That's where we stand. I wonder what other daft things that you'll be doing, because I can't see anything that you've done that's sensible. And not only that, but under your tutelage, your governance for the past few years, all the senior people in the executive have left. They all packed it up. They all had enough. So what are we left with? A bunch of idiots in charge and a bunch of inexperienced people, even if they are well-meaning, administering the whole thing. No wonder we are in a mess. No wonder we are flailing. And what did you do? You joined forces to try and shrink. You've never done anything to help us. You've never done anything to help the Sussex Express that I'm aware. What you've done is you've eroded at the edges the safeguard for democracy. You've eroded safeguard for democracy. That's what you've done. You are not democratic at all. Not at all. And democracy has got to be the main thing that we can cling to in these troubled times. Sunak is as bad. And as for Starmer, God help us. We need a flushing out of the lot of you and start over again. That's what we need. And what will the citizenry do? Oh, well, we can't do anything. And that's what you rely upon. They can't do anything. Well, as long as there's life and breath in us, we shall try to shift you. And that's not playing politics. We don't care which party is in power. What we want are people of substance, people who are capable. We want excellence. We don't want all these silly, nonsensical political. You're the politicians. You're the people that play politics. And it's time you stopped and got on with what we voted you into to do. I'll tell you one thing. I hope that you go to Katie Bourne and say you'll need extra police on Boxing Day, because I'd like to bet you do. I'd like to bet that you do. It's exactly 10 o'clock. Let's take a break. My voice is wearing thin. Right. Let's. I'll tell you what. Let us not tar Declan with our brush. Let's let's see if we can sort of be neutral at this particular stage, since we've been yelling and screaming and shouting and ranting and raving and stamping our little feet. We'll avoid letting people know that we're in the Black Horse. We'll be back in a few minutes' time. Toodle-pip. That's it just for the moment. Yes, let's do the Sir Genry. He is really part of this organization. Okay, Genry is out.